Amelia Dyer, born Amelia Elizabeth Hobley in 1836 in Bristol, England, emerged as one of the most infamous figures in Victorian-era criminal history. Her life's journey from an unassuming beginning to a notorious end is as intriguing as it is chilling. Amelia's early life in Pile Marsh, Bristol, was marked by modesty and hard work. Her father, Samuel Hobley, was a master shoemaker, respected beyond the confines of their small village. Despite not being wealthy, the family managed a decent living, and Amelia, along with her 4 older siblings, received a good education. She displayed an early interest in literature, impressing her teachers with her poems and short stories. However, the family's mundane existence was marred by her mother's struggle with typhus, which led to severe mental instability, violent behavior, and frequent beatings of the children. This tumultuous household environment planted seeds of deep-seated hatred in Amelia's psyche, a factor that historians believe contributed to her later criminal behavior. Amelia's academic performance was commendable, and her love for literature was evident from a young age. However, her life took a darker turn due to her mother's deteriorating mental health. Her mother's violent outbursts, driven by typhus-induced brain fever, created a traumatic environment at home. The physical and emotional turmoil she endured was compounded by the deaths of 2 of her sisters, adding to her burgeoning emotional distress. The death of her mother in 1848 was a significant turning point. Amelia found herself distanced from most of her family and soon moved to Bristol to live with her aunt. This relocation offered her a respite and an opportunity to start anew. She embarked on an apprenticeship with a corset maker, a skill she hoped to turn into a viable career. In a twist of fate, Amelia's path crossed with George Thomas, a man 35 years her senior. They married when Amelia was just 24 years old. This marriage marked a new chapter in her life, leading her to train as a nurse and midwife, a decision that unknowingly laid the groundwork for her future as a baby farmer and serial killer. Amelia Dyer's journey into the grim world of baby farming began with her background in nursing and midwifery. During the Victorian era, a significant stigma was attached to illegitimate pregnancies. Women who bore children out of wedlock were often ostracized, facing harsh societal judgment. This period saw a surge in the number of women desperately seeking solutions for their newborns, which created a demand for services like those Amelia would soon offer. Her skills as a nurse and midwife positioned her perfectly to capitalize on this need, setting the stage for her entry into the baby farming industry. Baby farming was a practice where individuals, for a fee, would take in babies, typically those born out of wedlock, and care for them. This service was a response to the dire situation many unwed mothers found themselves in, as the social and financial burdens of raising a child alone were often overwhelming. Initially, Amelia Dyer operated within the accepted norms of this industry. She started by taking weekly payments from mothers for looking after their infants. However, the seeds of greed soon sprouted, leading her down a path of unfathomable cruelty. Her nursing expertise, which once symbolized care and nurture, became tools in a sinister trade, exploiting the very individuals she was supposed to protect. Amelia Dyer's descent into becoming a serial murderer began with a sinister shift in her baby farming practice. Initially, her method was passive but brutal. She allowed the infants in her care to die from starvation and neglect. To keep the babies quiet as they suffered, she administered mother's friend, an opium-laced syrup. This cruel practice was just the beginning. As greed took over, Amelia evolved her methods, resorting to more direct and faster means of killing to increase her profits, allowing her to take in more infants and, in turn, more money. Amelia's alarming rate of infant mortality eventually caught the attention of a doctor, leading to her first brush with the law. Suspicious of the high number of deaths, she was charged with neglect, resulting in a 6-month labor sentence. This experience, rather than reforming her, only taught her to be more cautious. Upon her release, Amelia no longer involved physicians in her operations. She began disposing of the bodies herself to avoid detection, often relocating and adopting various aliases to escape suspicion. This marked a new, more devious phase in her criminal career, as she refined her methods to continue her nefarious activities undetected. As Amelia Dyer's criminal activities progressed, her methods of murder became increasingly brutal and heartless. She evolved from merely neglecting the infants to actively causing their demise. This included starving the infants and injecting them with harmful chemicals, actions that reflected a deepening cruelty and a disturbing disregard for human life. These methods not only ensured the death of the infants but also allowed her to handle a larger number of victims, maximizing her financial gain from the heinous practice. Dyer's ability to evade capture was as coldly efficient as her methods of murder. She frequently moved from place to place, adopting new identities to stay ahead of the law. Her cunning extended to feigning mental illness, which she used to her advantage whenever she felt the authorities were closing in. These acts of deception included multiple stays in asylums and even a staged suicide attempt, all orchestrated to deflect suspicion and continue her ghastly trade under the radar. The pivotal moment in the case against Amelia Dyer came unexpectedly. A bargeman, navigating the Thames, discovered the body of a baby girl discarded in the river. This grim find would lead directly to Amelia's capture. Notably, the wrapping paper around the baby's body bore an address, a clue that ultimately led investigators to Dyer. It was this seemingly small detail that unraveled her long-standing reign of terror. Upon raiding Dyer's residence, the police uncovered damning evidence. The stench of human decomposition hung heavy in the air, and they found items used for disposing of bodies. The discovery of a baby's body in the Thames, traced back to one of Dyer's many aliases, Mrs. Thomas, further solidified the case against her. This conclusive evidence led to her apprehension and marked the end of her macabre activities. The trial exposed the full extent of her crimes, leaving little doubt about her guilt and resulting in her conviction. Amelia Dyer's trial was a swift affair, characterized by her plea of insanity in response to the charges against her. She admitted guilt to only a single murder, despite overwhelming evidence of numerous others. The jury, however, was unconvinced by her claims of mental instability, a defense undermined by the calculated nature of her crimes. It took them less than 5 minutes to reach a guilty verdict, reflecting the clear and damning nature of the evidence presented against her. Amelia Dyer's story concluded on June 10, 1896, with her execution by hanging. While she confessed to multiple murders during the weeks leading up to her execution, she was officially convicted for only one. Her last words were reportedly, "I have nothing to say." Her execution was carried out at Newgate Prison, bringing an end to the tragic saga of one of Britain's most notorious serial killers. Amelia Dyer's heinous acts cemented her place in history as one of the most prolific murderers in British criminal history. She is suspected of having killed between 200 to 400 children, a staggering number that underscores the extent of her brutality. Her name remains synonymous with one of the darkest chapters in the history of Victorian England. The infamy of Dyer's case had a profound impact on the laws and regulations governing adoption and child care. It exposed the horrifying abuses within the baby farming industry and underscored the urgent need for stricter oversight. In response to her crimes, significant changes were made to adoption laws, aiming to protect the most vulnerable in society from such unimaginable exploitation and cruelty. Her case served as a catalyst for reform, leading to improved safety and regulation in the care of infants and children. And that concludes the chilling tale of Amelia Dyer, a name that looms large in the annals of British criminal history. Her story, from a troubled beginning to a notorious end, serves as a stark reminder of the capacity for evil that can exist hidden within seemingly ordinary lives. Her impact, however dark, brought about significant change, transforming the way society cares for its most vulnerable. As we reflect on her legacy, we are reminded of the importance of vigilance and the need for continued reform in child welfare and protection. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a grim chapter of Victorian England.